let you know how you can be a part of the show. We've got a special guest joining us this morning, but let's get on with it. I'll let you know this is how you can be a part of the conversation. WhatsApp number 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at smooth981, and we're streaming live on our YouTube channel as well, so you can catch that live stream on YouTube. It's smooth981.
To get into the conversation, everything business this morning with Dr. Damilare, Asimiyu, Macroeconomic Strategist, Affrinviest Research and Consulting. Good morning to you.
Yes, good morning, the business team. Good morning to all Nigerians who are able to join us at this precious time of the day to listen to this program.
Thank you. So let's begin with fuel issues. That PMS, let's start in Nigeria when we had full fuel subsidies going on, was ranked up top 5 nations with the cheapest fuel in the world. But fast forward now to since it's gone pronouncement on Inauguration Day. A new result ranking now puts Nigeria as 22nd, the cheapest fuel. Is this some improvement?
Yeah, thank you very much. For every economic principle, or what we call economic law, right, there is a usual phrase that ended all, and that phrase is ceteris paribus, all other things being equal. Yeah, so, but unfortunately, in the case of Nigeria, not all things are equal, right? So when you look at what the ranking is saying, say before, a fuel price or pump price is ranked among the 5th cheapest, which shows that we were heavily subsidizing before. I mean, there are studies from the UK government between 2005 and 2007 that shows that Nigeria blew away over 10 trillion naira on subsidy. 2018 to now, if I try to sum up what the Buhari administration expended on subsidy till mid-year last year when we paid full subsidy, that is roughly another 10 trillion. So basically in the last 20 years, you'll see we have blown away 20 trillion, which could have gone gone a long way to fixing a lot of things. But when you then contextualize it, and that's why I said economics law is about ceteris paribus, other things being equal. Other things are not equal in Nigeria. Now, on paper, having subsidy for a commodity like oil is actually not sustainable, especially for a government that needs revenue, because the biggest problem the Nigerian government will always have been clamoring for years is about revenue. But when you then contextualize it, right, there are basic infrastructures that should be put in place that would have, if those structures are in place, the noise around the removal of subsidy wouldn't have been there. Of course, I don't want to go to the part of discussion that will have addressed the fact that we have actually missed those best opportunities of removing subsidy. Subsidy would have been easily removed in 2020 when COVID-19 pandemic drove oil price below $40. It would have been easily removed in 2012 when prices were also cheap then. So, but let me stick to the issue of structural issue. Now, in most climes, right, we have steady power supply. Businesses don't need to rely on gensets. Typically, most businesses that are opening this morning are calculating that, if possible, they should just get 3-4 hours of light. The rest, they will drive with gensets, which is not efficient. So, as we have some basic infrastructure, you have good road, you have steady power supply, you have mass transit, the shout around subsidy would not be there, because it means the people that would have actually need fuel are those that actually just need it for automobiles, like what we see in most countries. And so if I cannot afford it when there is no subsidy on it, I'll join the mass transit and I'll live well. It will affect me from having access to health insurance. It will affect the most vulnerable, because the most vulnerable will have been captured in what we call social investment scheme. But unfortunately in Nigeria, those basic things are not there. And so it then makes implementing a what I would call a noble policy like removing the subsidy becoming a difficult. In fact, it's not a matter of life and death, because between the time we began to remove subsidy last year and now, there has been estimated by renowned organizations saying that more than 4 million Nigerians have been added to the poverty, dragged below the poverty line. And earlier last year, the NBS number already shows that we have 132.9 million people below the poverty line. So it makes it complicated. But by and large, the subsidy cannot remain, because government will not be able to make progress. But again, we also need to plug some gaps to make the removal relieving for businesses, for households. Not we just focusing on removing it. We need to also be putting in place those structures that are lacking.
All right, let's do something hypothetically and see what it's looking like if the prices of petrol really were reflective of the reality in terms of cost. Because going by the globalpetrolprices.com, saying the average fuel price for the globe is about $1.29. And if you look at these and multiply by the official exchange rate, let's say yesterday, that's about 1,104 naira per liter. Then just even do that by the parallel market in itself, you see it's about 1,240 naira. That's around there, 1,599 naira per liter. So can Nigerians really afford this? And can we say really there isn't a subsidy right now as we speak?
So so let me take your question in the reverse. I mean, the numbers you just quoted there already reflect that something is not hard enough, right? If the average price given the current exchange rate is showing that PMS should be traded at above 1,000, we're still doing 600. Definitely somebody is still covering a gap. It's just that the level of gap that was being covered has reduced and perhaps has also impacted on government revenue positively. Now, going back to the crux of the question, can Nigeria afford it? That is the biggest elephant in the room. Affordability. As of early last year or so, the NIBBS, that is the agency within the banking space that manages the transfer of accounts or transfer of anything, movement of money, made us to know that about 90% of Nigerians' accounts have less than 500,000. So meaning that when you look at the Nigerian population, you look at a population of over 200 million, where people between age 18 and above are above 150 million, are all within that bracket. You are saying just about 5% of them have more than 500,000 in accounts, in savings. So meaning that it is safe. And it also reflects what the number of MBS says, that more than 70% of Nigeria are in abject poverty. So affordability of a PMS becomes difficult. And when you look at what our minimum wage is saying, 30%, I mean, 30,000 rather, that value has been shattered by inflation. What can a typical and average Nigerian do? So, and that's why I spoke about the structure before, because the reality is that as we have those basic structure, this debate will not be there. Because now that we don't have the structure, the large mass are now at the receiving end, because it becomes difficult for them to move from one place to the other because of the fact that their earnings are very weak. So the affordability problem is there because only a fraction of Nigeria, very low fraction of Nigeria, less than 5%, can actually afford PMS at a cost-reflective rate. And the government knows that you cannot have a country if you don't have your people having peace, because there will always be a country if there is a market. And who are the market? The population. But when just only 5% of the population are able to afford, then what you'll be seeing is the kind of experience we saw with some of the big names businesses that closed down last year. Because yes, you have a large population, but only few can afford. And that is going to also be reflecting if subsidy is fully removed. I'm against subsidy being in play because from an economic standpoint, it is a colossal waste. Look at the numbers I analyzed the other time. But you have to contextualize everything because ceteris paribus does not hold in the context of Nigeria. So because of that gap, it will be a problem that we just have to look for a Nigerian way to solve it.
All right, let's go on to the messages on WhatsApp. Tayo says government has been making significant adjustment to the economy with subsidy, but doing little to nothing about economic recovery with short-term palliatives. You can keep the messages coming, 0809 440 981. Damilare, let's move on to the central bank. Now, it says it's disbursed about a further $61 million that is owed in FX to foreign airlines. Now, last year, IATA, which is the International Air Transport Association, said Nigeria was the #1 nation with the most trapped FX, over $800 million. Does the CBN still have a long way to go?
I mean, the number you just read out, reflected that. You are owing over 800 million and you've just paid 61. I mean, if my math is good, that's less than 10%. And the picture around the trapped FX of airline you just painted is also even a fraction of the bigger elephant in the room, so to say. Because one of the things that the new CBN governor made known to us early in September last year after assuming office is that the cumulative backlog of FX that the CBN needs to pay. This airline operator one you mentioned is part of it. We also have 4 contracts that have been trapped. It's actually in the region of $10 billion. And that was why the Nigerian government approached Afrinviest for 3.3 billion facility, out of which we just got about 2.25. There's another move to get some FX facilities from, I think, the UAE government and some other bilateral agencies. So that shows you the depth of liability in terms of FX that the CBN is having on them. But by and large, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. This backlog didn't get there in a day. It was over the years. So if we now have a new CBN governor and a new government that are trying to address it, even though the strategy of addressing it is what I would call a stopgap approach, just to let's just fix it first, then we begin to look for a lasting solution. So, but by and large, looking from that broad prism that, oh, somebody brought us here, some administration brought us here, some mismanagement brought us here, and somebody is trying to address it gradually. It's difficult to rebuild things, difficult to fix things. And I will still say that it's a decent move that we're even making moves to address that, because their development has actually created a lot of unacceptable impression about the Nigerian market in the minds of foreign investors, which is telling in terms of capital importation. It nearly dried up the last quarter.
All right, so still on this issue, I'm going to try to see if I can squeeze 3 questions in one. Would a fresh inflow of FX be the solution when it comes to this backlog? And if it is, how is Nigeria expected to basically get this FX that is desperately needed? In fact, some people are saying you can stabilize the currency. How do you see this playing out this year? We're just starting.
So we did a lot of FX, and that is the fact. Now, the ones that are coming in now, the market might not really feel the effect in terms of stabilizing the FX, and that's the truth. Because the ones coming in now are to offset some liabilities. You talked about airline operators. Most of those, in fact, maybe except for some local airline operators, I think about 70% of operators in Nigeria airline industry are foreigners. Those monies paid to them will be repatriated to their own countries because they've actually declared them as profit. They just need to get this money out. So most of this liquidity that will be available, that will be created from this disbursement from Afrinviest, this 2.25 billion that we're still expecting the second batch, will actually be taken out of the system. But it's actually a good one, right? If we can, so that's why I said we need so much FX. We need to first offset the ones that are liability. Now, by the time we offset that, the estimated 10 billion or so, then, of course, not all of them will go out of the system. So the ones that are in the system will also then help create liquidity. And that's why I said this current move is a stopgap. So the real solution around FX is to begin to implement initiatives that will arouse the interest of foreign portfolio investment. In 2019, foreign portfolio investment flow to Nigeria was in the region of $23.9 billion. And that was why between 2017 and 2019, when the CBN created the iron window, exchange rate was stable at around 305. Why? Because inflows were decent. So you need to first regain or restore the confidence of foreign investors that when they bring in their money, because FX is not a Nigerian money, the CBN cannot print it. So you have to restore the confidence of those that will bring it. So Nigeria needs a lot. This is a right move. But we need to also encourage those that will bring it in sufficient quantity and also to improve our exports. The more we have positive net export, which will hand us FX, the better we have. FX is a major currency needed for international trade. Nigeria is an open economy. We always need it. But the moment we are not able to export sufficiently, then we'll not get it right. If we don't get it right with any more FX, we'll always be coming back to this conundrum.
All right, so if you can do this for us in about a minute, because this is yet another significant milestone. We understand that on the stock market, The United Bank of Africa, UBA, doing the 1 trillion naira market cap product. The FBN holding joined in late 2023. So what does this say about the NGX, and also knowing that it crossed the 80,000 naira threshold, trillion, 80,000 mark?
Yeah, I think the Nigerian equities market has been doing very fantastic. I mean, it did very fantastic last year and has also been doing very fantastic. I must comment. In 2020, even with the pandemic, the Nigerian market returned 50%. And that was what made Bloomberg to rank it as the best performing. The following year, it did 6.1, 2022, it did 19.9, and last year, 45.9. So that shows you consistent improvement. But again, if you then dimension that number deeper, right? Foreign participant has reduced. The banking sector has been doing very fantastic, delivering over 14%, 114% last year. The basic reason for that, I mean, based on my own analysis, the fact that Nigerians are now becoming more sensible or sensitive to what I would call inflation-adjusted return or reducing inflation-adjusted return. So look at the dynamics in Nigeria. Inflation kept going up. So people have then realized that it's better to invest your money and earn something than keep it up. For instance, inflation averaged 28% last year. So meaning that if you hold your currency with you or your naira with you, you'll have lost 28% value. But if you have invested it, irrespective of any of the sector you invested last year, you'll have gotten something that will either offset the inflation or make you better off. So if you have invested in the banking sector tickers last year, you won't be crying of the effect of inflation because you'll have gained 114%, while inflation has eroded just 28%. In fact, even if you look at it from the point of FX depreciation was just 40%, but you'll have delivered. So I think that awareness is what's driving Nigeria, not solely about fundamental alone. People are now sensitive that investing is key and it will help reduce or preserve the value of your investment.
All right, we have a few messages coming through. Gilbert says, like the analyst said, we have to ensure legacy infrastructure is in place before all the talk about fuel subsidy removal. Rail transport started in Omatseye in 1898 and was effective till the Gowon era. It took a dip in the 1970s till date. Fine Oluboroko says, the guest, who is Damilare, is spot on why we cannot go completely hands off on fuel subsidies. We must find Nigeria's own solution.
We say thank you to Damilare Asimiyu, Macroeconomic Strategies, Affrinviest Research and Consulting, for letting us know this morning is quite a morning of business elephants in the room. And thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That is it for Business Express. Stay with us. There's a lot more to come on a Smooth Breakfast.